Stay tuned to hear from our clients of the quarter, Kurt Zaner and Marc Harden, about a drunk driving case. Today, in our series of America's Top Trial Lawyers, we will meet Kurt Zaner and Marc Harden of the Zaner Harden Law Firm, headquartered in Denver, Colorado. They have tried and won cases in every court at every level in the state of Colorado. Both are published authors, and Kurt Zaner served as a past president and currently on the board of directors for the New Lawyers Division Committee of the American Association for Justice. He has been featured on Good Morning America, World News Tonight, and every media outlet in the state of Colorado. Marc Harden serves on the board for the Colorado Trial Lawyers Association. He won the New Trial Lawyer of the Year from that organization in 2013, and he's a lifetime member of the $1 Million Forum. Welcome today, Kurt Zaner and Marc Harden. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we would like to hear about the drunk driving case that you had recently and some unusual testimony from law enforcement. Tell us about it.
Yeah, happy to. You know, it was one of our earliest cases, early big trials that garnered a lot of publicity here in Denver. Local newspaper, Denver Post, ended up on the front page there. But it was a really sad case because it was just a beautiful family, this Iraqi immigrant family that literally fled Saddam Hussein in the middle of the night with nothing but the clothes on their back. They made their way to America, and one of their sons, Abdul Ghaffar Hillo, 25 years old at the time, loved motorcycles. You know, we get a lot of calls on motorcycle cases just because a lot of people like to ride out here in Colorado, so we weren't surprised to get the call. But we got the call, and Ghaffar had unfortunately passed away. This was a case that literally nobody else in town wanted. The cops had him going 88 miles per hour on a city street that's about 40 mile per hour speed limit. And as he was driving down, a drunk driver pulled out in front of him and crashed right into him. And it's all caught on video. It was a local kind of oil change place called the Grease Monkey. So you see our client's motorcycle speeding and hits kind of the back window behind the driver's side. But the driver of the Jeep, he sped away afterwards. You can see it all on video. Parked 3 blocks away and left 6 bottles of beer, a little bottle of vodka, a marijuana pipe, an injured friend in the back seat who had taken the brunt of our client's helmet when he went through the back window. And the defendant driver ran 17 miles with 3 broken ribs and waited 3 days to turn himself into the police, knowing at that point they wouldn't be able to get a BAC, to blood alcohol content, on him, and he was never charged with causing the crash. And we've discovered during the case that his father was doing internet searches during those 3 days to see just how long alcohol stays in the system.
Wow. What an incredible story. And I can't even imagine what the family went through. And so you took the case to trial. And so tell us a little bit about how the testimony went at trial and what that was like and what the result was for the family.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest obstacles was that the police didn't charge our client because he passed away, but found him to be at fault. And so we had a huge liability issue, and our plan was kind of twofold: create anger at this driver for drinking and driving, kind of creating what we called a rolling party in his Jeep, drinking with his buddies, going to car washes, hangout places, and then leaving our client literally to die in the street, you know, treating him maybe even worse than one if they hit an animal. And, you know, usually stop for an animal to see if the animal's okay. This guy just sped away, treating him, you know, as we said in trial, no better than a trash can.
There was a report that had painstakingly put blame on the motorcycle driver and talked to him about what ultimately was allowed to be his opinion about that the motorcycle driver was at fault and not this other potentially drunk party, and worked with him on all the things that he didn't have access to, you know, blood alcohol information, the opportunity to interview this person at the scene, all the kind of information that a police officer needs in order to render a fair decision on who they think's at fault, to the extent that that even matters in a case like this. And then when it came to the accident reconstruction expert, you know, really just taking apart his testimony on what the driver of the SUV should have seen, because the testimony was that he couldn't have seen, he couldn't have done anything different if he was sober, this potentially drunk party, because the motorcycle driver was driving too fast and he didn't have time to react whether or not he'd had 0 beers or 100 beers. So that was very difficult testimony to overcome. But the way we really did it was to utilize real world examples of things that people can see from certain distances, be it a golf ball or something at the ballpark. It had some fun with kind of real life examples and worked through some, I think, guerrilla tactics on cross-examination that we've honed here at the firm.
When you think about how the testimony, I guess, unfolded at the trial and the jury verdict, were you surprised? Obviously you were pleased with the outcome, and what about your client's family?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard feeling to describe, because there's an emptiness to the result, because you're talking about somebody losing their life, and ultimately you're representing people that had the worst kind of harm possibly put on them. And so it was incredibly rewarding to represent that family. We became very close to them. Kurt actually did the closing, and it was one of the most moving and powerful moments in trial that I've ever witnessed, and several of our colleagues were there as well and agree with that. And I can say that the result was important, and I think for the kind of work we do, which we do a ton of motorcycle referral work here in Colorado, we're known for having a pretty active motorcycle community. We specialize in brain injury and motorcycle cases. It's a big part of what we do. I mean, it was a great way to win a really important case, but more important to us was that this was a family story that was told, and that nobody else was going to tell it.
Well, thank you for sharing that incredible story, and thank you for the work that you do. I think a lot of people, when they think about trial lawyers, they don't realize that not only are you working this hard to get justice for that family, but maybe, just maybe, you've set a precedent that will say to the world, yes, our guy was going faster than he should have, but that doesn't excuse the negligent conduct of the guy who was drinking and fled the scene and all of those things. And so you really do make a difference in the world, and thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you. And just to add to that real quick, I mean, we never shied away from the fact that our client's son did have some responsibility in this, and I think that's important. When you're going to go out into the world and say that somebody else did something wrong, you have to look at your own conduct and your own kind of part in it. And the jury got that too. The jury did tag ultimately our client's son with some responsibility. And I think it was the right thing. But it doesn't mean that we're going to let somebody that drives drunkenly, that doesn't even stick around to take their accountability piece, just walk away from that. So we were willing to spend the time and the resources necessary to hold that person accountable.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, Mark, and just a quick follow-up question. I've always been told that at the end of the day, juries want to do the right thing. And it seems like by addressing that early in your case, you accomplish that with them. Generally, would you agree that you think juries really try to do the right thing? And clearly they did in your case.
It's our job to reveal that truth in a compelling package. And, I think it's harder than people think, to show the truth. You got to remember, you have people that are paid a lot of money on the other side to pull that apart and really to lie to the jury. And so sometimes they're really effective at that, and that's our job, is to make sure that the truth is heard and that ultimately it's revealed.
You talk about making a difference and sending a message. With all of our large verdicts, they almost always get appealed. So we get a chance to make good case law. And so as a result of this case being appealed, which we handled most of the appeal, I got to argue at the Court of Appeals. In Colorado, you can now get punitive damages against drunk drivers who have had previous drunk driving incidents. So now, because of this case, if you're a drunk driver and you've had 1 or 2 drunk driving convictions, now the law in Colorado is you can use those previous drunk driving convictions to come in to show reckless behavior, knowing how dangerous it is to drink and drive. And that was not the law before in Colorado. So that's a nice piece of case law that's now been helping other drunk driving victims throughout the state of Colorado.
Absolutely. And, we touched on that earlier, and thank you for sharing all of that. Again, it's about getting justice for your client and your client's family, but it's about making the world a safer place and holding these corporate defendants and insurance companies accountable for this behavior. So, two very awesome stories. Thank you again, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.